Hi, my name is ADILAH binti ZAILANI. So today I will explain the introduction of 21st century science classroom. Firstly, we need to know the objective of this learning. First, to understand the concept and techniques of the 21st century science classroom. Second, to determine the effect of the 21st century science classroom. Third, to stimulate creativity and innovation by offering new ways of thinking. Fourth, to enhance group problem solving. What is a 21st century science classroom? 21st century are the combination of cognitive process and the technologies that enable individuals to leverage this process for the greatest impact. It is student-centered, not teacher-centered. Second, there have three categories of 21st century skills, which are learning skills, literacy skill, and life skills. Learning skills, which is the 4 C's, teach students about the cognitive process able to adapt and improve in a modern work setting. Literacy skills, IMT, are concerned with how students can distinguish between facts, publishing outlets, and the technology that support them. There is a major emphasis on selecting reliable source and factual information in order to differentiate it from the disinformation that abounds on the internet. Existence skills flips as a main intangible aspect of a student's daily life. These intangibles are concerned with both personal and professional characteristics. Then, the scientific literacy is one of the skills required in digital age literacy. And science process skills consist of interpreting data, operational definition, control variable, making hypotheses, and experimenting. History began in 1980. The identification and application of 21st century skills in education and the workplace originate in the United States, but now has extended around the world. By the year 2000, the top skills required by US Fortune 500 companies had evolved from traditional reading, writing, and arithmetic to collaboration, problem solving, and interpersonal skills. In 2010, the Common Core Standards developed by the National Governors Association (NGA) and the Council of Chief State School Officers (CCSSO) demand for the integration of 21st century skills into K-12 curriculum across the United States. And the result, education system began to change their focus toward providing students with a variety of abilities that relied not just on cognition but also on the interdependence of cognitive, emotional, and social aspects. Now let's look at the 20th century learning vs 21st century learning. First, in 20, emphasize on learning content knowledge that may or may not be used in life, while in 21st, emphasize on process skills for lifelong learning. Second, in 20, goal is to master content knowledge, while in 21st, goal is to learn skill to solve problems. Third, in 20, print-based information analysis, while in 21st, multimedia information analysis.
Assalamualaikum and have a good day everyone. I am SYAHIDA and I will talking about the 21st century issues in teaching and learning. In this 21st century, Information and Communication Technology (ICT) plays an important role in producing highly skilled students. As a view in the past, learning only involved in reading, writing, and counting skills. However, current modern educational world has changed the pattern of learning digitally. According to the research, many teachers have found problems with using technology-assisted activities in the teaching and facilitating process in the classroom. Some of the main challenges that the teachers and the schools have to face are lack of a knowledge about modern technologies among the teachers. As we know, most teachers with 10 to 20 years of experience in the teaching have their own teaching method compared to a new teacher. Teachers need to know not only how to get the most out of each new tool themselves, but also how to train their students on how to use it. New technology in the classroom also means needing IT professionals to help set it up, maintain it to support teachers and students. Although professionally training teachers, faculty, and staffs may require time and money, it's necessary if students are expected to get the desired effects out of their technological experience. Second, teachers must maintain students' interest in studying in facing 21st century's also significant challenges. Nowadays, student interest is changing due to technology devices such as computer and smartphone. The issues brings a lot of problem for teachers to get their interest to focus in the classroom when using technology to teach. Plus, with the size of classroom growing bigger than ever, monitoring technology has become challenging. Third, dealing with the attitude and behaviors of students is also one of the challenges facing in 21st century teaching and learning. The patient level of students is decreasing, while rudeness, argumentations, and short temper are on the rise. This attitude is due to modern age competitions, stress, availability of alternate sources of knowledge like the internet and violence shown in the movies, televisions, or video games. This student attitude has brought difficulty for teachers to teach and understand the student.
New teaching methodologies are changing the educational environments around the world and driving better academic performance among the students. We go over some of the main innovative approaches that educators have forged over the last few years and that every 21st century teacher should be acquainted with. Before we can dive into what teaching strategies a 21st century educator should use, we must first take a look at what 21st century learning is. By the way, my name is FAZILAH and I will present to you about 5 important teaching strategies that educators should have in this 21st century teaching and learning. The term 21st century learning has been used to refer to abilities students must master, such as problem-solving skills, critical thinking skills, and digital literacy. But what we can say is that today's educators need to use teaching strategies to equip students with the characteristics and skills that will help them live in this ever-changing technological world. The only way that we can do that is by having our own 21st century characteristics and skills. Here are 5 of the most important teaching strategies 21st century educators should have in today's classroom. First of all, as an educator, be able to implement technology. Being a 21st century educator means having the ability to be able to teach and reach all the learners. That means the ability to differentiate learning so that all students are able to learn using their own unique style and by their ability or readiness level. Moreover, some of the educators nowadays are facing a hard time to understand and discover the technologies in this pandemic. Our teaching and learning has been shifted to online, so everything is involved with technology. As an example, our novice teacher, maybe a teacher that has 30 or 40 years of teaching experience, might have a problem to use Google Meet and so on for the first time when pandemic hits the world. We can't avoid that technology is keep updating day by day. Maybe now we have this seminar by online and maybe after 10 years there will be a new technology invented such as hologram and so on. So, it is important that all the educators should empowering the use of technology in order to follow the rhythm of our student itself. Most of our students nowadays are well used with the technologies itself. An effective educator will have the know-how and the wherewithal of how to efficiently implement and incorporate technology into the classroom in a way that will be productive for all students. Other than that, as an educator, he or she should be able to simultaneously develop lower and higher order thinking skill by the doing problem-based learning. PBL is a cyclic learning process composed of many different stages, starting with asking questions and acquiring knowledge that in turn leads to more questions in a growing complexity cycle. Lower order exercises are fairly common in existing curricula, while higher order thinking activities are much less common. Higher level thinking tends to be difficult for students because it requires them not only to understand the relationship between different variables, lower order thinking, but also how to apply or transfer that understanding to a new uncharted context, which is the higher order thinking. Higher level thinking skills take time to develop, and teaching them generally requires a trade-off from development of critical thinking skill and creative skills. We, as an educator, should teach the students to learn how to learn. Teachers can develop students' metacognitive capacity by encouraging them to explicitly examine how they think. It is also important for students to develop positive mental models about how we learn, the limits of our learning, and indications of failure. Students benefit from believing that intelligence and capacity increase with effort, and that mistakes and failures are opportunity for self-inquiry and growth rather than indictment of worth or ability. Alright, now, cooperative learning. Stronger together. This concept, in a simple way, cooperative learning, a methodology that teachers use to group students together and thus impact on learning in a positive way. The proponents of this model theorize that working in a group improves the attention, involvement, and acquisition of knowledge by students. The main characteristic is that it is structured based on the formation of groups of 3 or 6 people, where each of the members has a specific role, and to reach the objectives it is necessary to interact and work in a coordinated manner. In a cooperative learning context, the final goal is always common and will be achieved if each of the members successfully perform their tasks. They can discuss the concept in pairs or groups and share what they understand about the rest of the class. They can develop arguments or debate them. They can role play. They can divide out materials about a given topic and then teach others about their piece. Together, students and the teachers can use a studio format in which several students work through a given issue, talking through the thinking process while the others comment. Alright, now the fourth teaching strategies, which is the educators should foster students' creativity. A common definition of creativity is the cognitive ability to produce novel and valuable ideas. Creativity is prized in the economic, civic, and global spheres because it sparks innovation that can create jobs, address challenges, and motivate social and individual progress. Like intelligence and learning capacity, creativity is not fixed characteristic that people either have or do not have. Rather, it is incremental, such that students can learn to be more creative, in contrast to the common misconception that the way to develop creativity is through uncontrolled, let the kids run wild techniques, or only through the arts. Creative development requires structures and intentionality from both teacher and students and can be learned through the disciplines. Last but not least, a teacher must address misunderstanding directly to the students. Another well-documented science of learning theory is that learners have many misunderstandings about how the world really works, and they hold onto this misconception until they have the opportunity to build alternative explanation based on experience. To overcome misconception, learners of any age need to actively construct new understandings. For example, there are a lot of students out there are not really interested in science because they think that science is hard to understand. As an educator, we should try to attract them to know more about science and break their misconception about science. Maybe an educator can try flipped classroom. Flipped classroom is a pedagogical approach in which the traditional elements of the lesson taught by the teachers are reversed. The primary educational materials are studied by the students at home and then work on in the classroom. The main objective of this methodology is to optimize time in class by dedicating it, for example, to meet the special needs of each individual student, develop cooperative project, or work on specific tasks. Actually, there is more techniques that I can share to you, but these 5 techniques are really common to learn. So that's all from me. I hope you guys can implement this into your teaching and learning process. Thank you.
Next part, we're going to look at what are the guidelines for the 21st century classroom. Before that, let me introduce myself. My name is AZIERA binti ANIZA, and without further ado, let's get started. But before that, are you guys aware of what are the meaning of guidelines? Guidelines, according to Cambridge, means the indication of future course of actions. So, what are the guidelines for the teachers to implement teaching and learning skill to classroom? The guideline for the 21st century classroom is very important for the teachers because it can serve to help teachers to conduct the teaching and learning skills and also process during the classroom, and also it is important to ensure teachers and students implement the 21st teaching and learning skills that will also enhance their education's process. For today, I'm going to discuss with you guys the 4 classroom guidelines, which is the first one is classroom standard, the second one is classroom assessment, the third one is classroom curriculum and instructions, and the last but not least is the classroom learning environment. So the first one, we're going to look at the 21st century standard classrooms. So the essential condition that teachers can follow is that all academic subjects studied incorporate with 21st century knowledge and skills. So how does teachers can align with this? Teachers can make a preparation standard incorporate with 21st century knowledge and skills, also align it with student standards. Next, program incorporate with 21st century students and educator preparation standard in a coherent, comprehensive way. The desired outcome from the classroom guidelines is that teachers can teach mastery of all academic subjects and possess interdisciplinary understanding along with 21st century skills. So the second one is the classroom guideline for the 21st century assessments. The classroom essential condition is that all academic assessment incorporate with 21st century knowledge and skills. So how does teachers can align with the 21st century assessment? They can use an evidence-centered design approach, and next they can develop student thinking skills such as HOT, which is high order thinking skills. Next, they can promote teamwork and collaborative assessment. The last one is they can improve digital and technological literacy during classroom. And this desired outcome for the teachers is that teacher able to conduct the classroom by aligning all the 21st century knowledge and skills and meet the learning outcome. For the third one, we have 21st century curriculum and instructions. The classroom essential condition guideline is that the curriculum must design for understanding, and then teachers employ teaching for understanding principle in daily practice. And teachers can align with promote deep understanding. It can have curriculum support flexible repurposing of technologies to meet disciplinary and pedagogical pedagogical needs. And the instructions must integrate inquiry-based learning and connect experience that tie real practice to theory. And then the desired outcome for teachers is that the student learning process achieve the curriculum goals, and then teachers develop and deliver lessons and topics that connect the most essential concept and skill student needs to know and do. Last but not least is the 21st century learning environments. So the classroom guideline essential condition is that the physical and technological infrastructure support collaborative project-based learning in all academic subject areas. Hence, school environments are safe and nurture the development of the students. And how does teachers can align with this? They can use current technology tools and resources used with careful considerations to content and pedagogy, as well as their effective integration. And they can keep up with the two-way communication during classroom sessions. So the desired outcome for the teachers is that the first desired outcome for teachers is that they can use the technologies fluently and in pedagogically appropriate ways in all content areas in daily practice. And next, we hope that teachers are attuned to and act as advocate for the emotional and physical.
I think that's all from my part, and I believe everyone in the educational tier plays an important role. Whether it's teacher or student, everyone needs to implement the teaching and learning skills in order for the 21st century skills to work. And based on the guideline that I have mentioned and we have discussed, I believe that teachers and students can easily follow so that the 21st century classroom can be done. Before I end my part, I believe that this saved by the Malala Yousafzai, which is one child, one teacher, one book and one pen can change the world. She also believed that everyone and everything can change educational process.
In this globally and digitally interconnected world, all learners need to prepare themselves with 21st century skills in order to success in school, work, and life. Applying 21st century science classroom is tremendously important for our nation's well-being. Why? Because the skills may produce learners who are civically engaged, digitally literate, and effective communicators. Other than that, practicing 21st century science classroom offers children opportunities to develop foundation skills that will help them to think creatively, easily analyze the data, and work collaboratively in the future. Next, 21st century science classroom can produce learners with high critical thinking skills. Learners with critical thinking skills have no problem in discovering the facts and truths on their own, since they have the ability to reflect and to think deeply about the knowledge they curious on. Most of them often try to find the answers for every question they have by asking their teachers or doing their own research regarding the knowledge instead of being passive in the classroom. Hence, the students produced through 21st century science classroom are someone who are actively collaborate in the classroom and can solve the real-world problem solving in the future. Next, we will proceed with the advantages of 21st century science classroom. Since our current generation is typically grown up using technologies such as smartphones and tablets, using them in the field of education will definitely put the learners at ease since they are familiar with the technology. Hence, the learning process would be easier for them to understand. Other than that, learning in digital world gave them the freedom to learn when or where they want it to be. They may study at their house or even in their bedrooms, as they are not tied to specific time to study. They can watch pre-recorded lectures during their free time and discuss about it with their teachers through online meeting platforms such as Google Meet and Zoom. Hence, it will improve their student-teacher interaction and allow better time usage as well. Lastly, 21st century science classroom can improve the content of education and the understanding level of the students. By using the internet, students can have immediate access about the science information, and the moving animations they watch through the videos will provide a better understanding compared to those static pictures they saw in the textbooks. Despite all of the advantages I have mentioned just now, 21st century science classroom also have their own disadvantages. One of the disadvantages is lack of human intervention in real life. Human intervention is still necessary to ensure that the teaching and learning process function the way it is supposed to be. Through digital learning, it is easier for the students to cheat during the exams. The teachers are unable to know students' level of knowledge since they probably discuss with their friends during the exams, or they can search for answers through the internet. This problem may lead to long-term consequences and will affect not only the students but also to the teachers, community and our future generation. Next, it may distract the students both in the classroom and outside of it. Nowadays, students mostly spend their time using smartphones or tablets after they have completed their school activities, or even worse, some students may use smartphones during online teaching and learning process. With the daily stand of using smartphones that mainly for entertainment purpose, students' brains are accustomed to entertaining, intensive and short-term contents that can stimulate their dopamine system. This has become a big problem since it may reduce their attention span, causing them to be unable to focus on the longest time during the online class. Lastly, it requires self-motivation and proper time management skills, which are hard for some students to do. 21st century science classroom is basically student-centered learning, and teachers only function as facilitators that help students to learn, not as lecturers. The students have to motivate themselves to study harder, to jot down every note during the class, and to gather more information regarding the lesson by asking their teachers or doing their own research through the internet. If they fail to properly manage their motivation and time, they can't achieve their goals or experience new things when actually some of them have the potential to succeed, but lack of motivation holds them from achieving it.
In conclusion, we will be able to understand the concept which is student-centered, not teacher-centered, and 10 techniques of the 21st century science classroom. Next, we will be able to determine the effect, either the advantage or disadvantage of the 21st century science classroom. Then, we will be able to stimulate creativity and innovation by offering new ways of thinking by using media online platforms. Lastly, we will be able to enhance group problem solving when having a discussion.